Welcome to Back Your Blue on Extra 106.3. My name is Tug Cowart, along with Daniel Matalon. He is the CEO of A Second Chance Bail Bonds and A Second Chance Monitoring. I know you've been traveling a ton. How are you, dude? Just worn slap out?
Yep.
Yes.
Leaving from here back out of town.
It's nuts. I texted you the other day, and I'm like, dude, where all have you been? I feel like, where in the world is Carmen Sandiego? I'm going to put, pins into a map to try to track your progress and where all you've been. It's been nonstop for you, dude.
Yep.
It's a bunch, and it seems like it's that way for everybody. We're starting the 100 deadliest days of summer, and that's the stretch between Memorial Day and Labor Day. Basically, the summer. What changes during those times? Well, our guest, Mike Lutzenkirchen, can give you the actual hard numbers. I think we can all figure it out. It's pretty obvious, but Mike started the Lutzie 43 Foundation and an organization. I want you to talk through that, Mike, just for anybody that doesn't know what Lutzie 43 is.
Yeah, first of all, guys, Daniel and Tug, thanks for having me back in here. And
always welcome.
This ever important, we're losing more people on our roadways. We lost 14 people over the Memorial Day weekend, which is one more than the previous year. And with all the efforts that are out there, why is the number going the wrong direction? I've got some theories on that. But, out of Marietta, Lasser School District, 4 kids. My youngest, my third child is Philip, my only boy, went on to Auburn, played football down there from 2009 to 12. Key contributor in the 2010 National Championship team, became a 2-time captain, went on to a brief career in the NFL due to some injuries, was out of that in one preseason. And then he went to a farm with some friends at age 23, the summer of 2014, and through a series of having fun during the day, drinking and so forth, 4 kids made the mistake of getting in an SUV at 2:30 in the morning. Rural community, weren't familiar with it. They were speeding. 3 of the 4 kids weren't wearing seatbelts. All 3 of those kids were either fully ejected or partially ejected, with 2 of the kids passing away, including my son. And the one young man that got in that vehicle, he was drunk, but he put a seatbelt on. A 2-second happened in his life, and he survived the crash in the front passenger seat, ran for help. So we lost Philip, and it's hard to believe it'll be an 11-year anniversary coming up. June's a tough month. Yesterday was his 34th birthday, and we lost him on June 29th of 2014. So we begin the month, and yesterday, quite frankly, there's a few tears shed that were sorrowful, but then we laughed and celebrated his life, and I'm here today because of Philip. I say this all the time to people. I wish I'd never met you guys because my son would be with us, but God's got a plan, and we got to go do what we can to try to eliminate roadway deaths. We're going to get a report out there when it comes out that'll tell us that we had about 45,000 people lost on U.S. roadways in 24 due to crashes.
Goodness. Jeez. And it's not always drinking and driving, and y'all have really embraced the other distractions that come on the roadways, especially with young drivers too, and that being the phone.
Yeah, we kind of have a tagline that we're trying to end distracted, impaired, and unsafe driving. That unsafe piece takes into all things. It's driving after midnight, when unless it's your job or an emergency, we shouldn't be on the roads after midnight, especially our young teenage drivers that are inexperienced. It's making sure all the passengers are wearing a seatbelt. When we get to a teen audience, we want to make sure that teenage passenger is just as important as that vehicle focused on safety as the driver themselves. Because if the leader of that vehicle is sitting in the back seat goofing around, there's a good chance that teen driver is going to goof around also. So that's why we say unsafe driving. But even on the way over here, what was it, maybe 12 miles from the Lassiter area into the studios here, a gentleman got on the interstate here, 75 South, was on his phone the entire time, and you can tell he was texting. Yeah. I got to watch myself because I probably get distracted when I try to catch him and say, hey, put your phone down. But it's all of the above of what we're doing, unsafe decisions on our roads.
Man, the scariest day, and I've said this before, and I'll say it a million times, the scariest day of my life that I can remember, and Daniel, you probably experienced this too, when my son left, he's about to turn 21, but my son backed out of the driveway for the first time as a licensed 16-year-old driver. I had taught him, my wife had taught him, he had been through driving school.
Yeah.
He did all of it. We did it all, and it still did not change the way I felt about him leaving that driveway for the first time. I'll never forget that feeling a day in my life.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I had the same with my daughter.
Yeah, it's just that uneasy, that awful feeling of I can't control this.
None of it.
I can control none of it. And it's imperative that my son, still at almost 21, that he makes good decisions. And I'm still after him. Mike, I still ask him those things. Hey, dude, I know you're on the road and I got a text from you. Well, what are you doing? And he's like, I stopped for gas. And maybe he did. Maybe he did. But there's no way for me to know, and it just scares the daylights out of me. Because it doesn't have to be the way that, Mike, you explained it, where the guy gets on 75 and he's just texting the entire time. It can be just a quick glance down at the phone because the phone buzzed. It could be that simple and happen that quick.
Well, Georgia, I'm proud of Georgia. I've been down here for almost 30 years now, and we were a state that enacted a hands-free law. That phone cannot be on your body July 1st of 2018. I was just thinking about that the other day. We're coming up on a 7-year anniversary. And I'm not sure that the trend hasn't where people stopped holding their phone, and now it's back to there's so many people holding their phone.
Yeah. You see it every day. I mean, almost every time I'm in the car, you're seeing it.
But can I tell y'all one thing that I think is just as bad as holding your phone, knowing that that's against the law and you're going to get yourself in trouble? But the CarPlays, the auto interaction between the phone and the dash of your car, where all the apps are. And you're wheeling through the apps. If you're wheeling through the apps, if you're looking at that screen, what are you not looking at? You're not looking at the road. And I think that's the next thing that will have to be addressed in some shape, form, or fashion. Because whether you're going to get your favorite music app or your favorite podcast app or your favorite radio station app, maybe it's Extra 106.3 where you're hearing the show today, and we certainly hope that it is. But there's so many apps on that screen that takes your focus off the road, and it's becoming an issue that I've heard no one discuss this, that interactive thing.
Yeah, technology is a great thing, but technology is a scary thing, all in the same mode, right? And again, life, there's a simple word that's just hard, at least for me when it comes to eating and so forth, is discipline.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's been labeled a bad word for so long.
Well, yeah, if we stay disciplined, there's a lot of things we can change. And I try to break down road safety as a father who lost his son, and that's why I'm in this road safety stakeholder community now. I didn't choose to be here, but I go back again, it's God's plans. To me, as road safety comes down to 3 elements. It's infrastructure, it's vehicle, and it's people. And we have a wonderful partnership with the Georgia Department of Transportation. We deliver these 5-hour safe driving summits. In fact, we've got one June 13th, which is a Friday. It'll be the first one we've done over the summertime. It was over at Pope High School. I would encourage you guys to pop in there if you want to see what this is all about. But we're partnered with the best experts in the state of Georgia, and that's the DOT. From an infrastructure standpoint, they know where to put a roundabout in, where to put rumble strips in, through crash data, where to reduce speed. That's the infrastructure piece, and we're proud that we partner with the best and brightest under Russell McMurray and his team at GDOT. The vehicles, we're doing more and more with trucking and transportation companies for various reasons. We think our 43 Key Seconds program can give them another reason to have the conversation with their driver that's following protocols or maybe not following protocols and make them safer. We're talking to some other companies in the software space that are putting cameras facing in and facing out of trucks. So that vehicle piece, we're starting to touch a little bit of it. But where our real sweet spot is through Philip's life and story is it's the behavior of the people. These high school kids, we're trying to help them create better driving decisions and behaviors immediately. Or maybe that 16-year-old who's had that license for 6 months and sees their mom and dad maybe not wear a seatbelt, or mom and dad pick up the phone. We're trying to get them to change some of those behaviors. So we think we're the element that can touch the behavior of the people and make some changes there proactively. And there's a fourth element I've been kicking around lately. So it's infrastructure, vehicles, and people. I do think there may be something in the weather. If you're following all the guidelines that you should as a safe driver and you get caught in a storm, weather could be a factor here. But to me, the simplicity of road safety is infrastructure, vehicles, people, and Lutzie 43 Foundation, 43 Key Seconds is trying to address that people issue.
We'll touch on that some in the next segment, but I think you're right on the weather and the infrastructure thing, because those stand out to me the most with all the construction and the infrastructure changing, which is, when it's done, it'll be great. But right now, I even get confused. I've been driving forever now. When the lines don't match where you're supposed to go anymore, or they've painted over them, and at night it's hard to see them, or as you brought up, in weather it's hard to see them, that creates a terrible dynamic that I find myself struggling with, Daniel. When you can't tell where you're supposed to be, and then the lanes are changing and shifting, and then I'm telling you, it is. I sound like the guy yelling at the clouds. I know, but it's the truth. I struggle with it too. I know if I struggle with it, a kid that's not experienced driving will.
We're always in such a hurry. We're always so busy.
That too, speed.
So we want to get somewhere, and even sometimes, I am starting to think that I need to add weather into the variables.
Makes sense.
We're always in a hurry. I know I've been times saying to myself, I should probably pull over until this storm passes or get off the road, but I've got to get somewhere, so I keep going and
just drive slow.
Yeah. So I'm gonna stick right now still with really the focus on the infrastructure, the vehicles, and the people. But weather is something is going to be kicking around. I got to tell you guys, I'm going to come back to Atlanta after speaking in Florida on Friday. I'll be back Friday night. I've got to speak in Atlanta Tuesday at a global roundabout conference on roundabout. So this is the technology element and the infrastructure element that I'm going to be in an audience that's so much smarter than me, but they want to hear the people's story of what 43 key seconds is and how we're making a difference.
We'll talk about that on the other side of the break, but Atlanta and Metro Atlanta's fallen in love with a roundabout. Man, we got roundabouts everywhere.
There's definitely some new ones around.
Goodness gracious. And maybe, do you have anything that tells us that those are good or bad? And we'll get that answer on the other side of the break. This is Back Your Blue on Extra 106.3. My name is Tug Cowart, along with Mike Lutzenkirchen of the Lutzie 43 Foundation and Daniel Matalon of A Second Chance Bail Bonds and A Second Chance Monitoring. We will be right back. Welcome back to Back Your Blue on Extra 106.3. My name is Tug Cowart, along with Daniel Matalon of A Second Chance Bail Bonds and A Second Chance Monitoring. Mike Lutzenkirchen is with us of the Lutzie 43 Foundation, going to speak at a roundabout conference. And then if you don't know what that is, then you've not been here in Atlanta very long, or you'll be introduced to one very, very shortly. What do you expect to get out of this roundabout conference?
To me, it's an international audience. There was a great book written back in the 90s called Good to Great, and they had a phrase they called a BHAG, which stands for Big, Hairy, Audacious Goal.
I like that.
One of our big, hairy, audacious goals is to get our 43 key second, the nationally recognized symbol that when people look at it, it triggers them to be a smarter or a driver or to be not distracted, not impaired, and unsafe. So this conference here, I'm going to share the story and give them the real human element to this audience. But, to give you answer your question about roundabouts, I was meeting with the South Carolina DOT one time, and a gentleman said, Mike, I want to say something that's going to sound insensitive. I know you lost your son, and you can't put a price on that, but if we do multiple studies at an intersection where there's been crashes and deaths, and we'll do the research, and let's say it costs us $8 million to put a roundabout in there that we know will slow the traffic down and probably eliminate fatalities, Mike, that's an $8 million return on investment. And we go a year and we don't have a body kill, we don't lose somebody, that's an $8 million return on investment. Now, I know that's not a price tag on your son, but I said, I'm not offended by that comment at all. You're giving me some financial elements as to why do that roundabout and what the impact. I get asked all the time with what we're doing, is there a return on investment? How do we know that? And my immediate response is always, how do you measure something that doesn't happen?
That's right.
So we think what we're doing is saving lives, it's changing behaviors and reducing the fatalities.
God, it's unbelievable. Daniel, do any of the people that in your network deal with the distracted driving stuff, does that come up? Is that something that would pop up in bond work?
Oh, yeah. It's all part of a lot of the cases, right, that we deal with. So, yeah, we see a lot of this stuff, and especially during this 100 days of summer is when it all cranks up.
Yeah.
This is when, we see arrests go up. It's, the weather. It's warm outside. People
are got the top down.
Well, yeah, school's out.
Been at the pool. Yeah. No, it's the truth. That's what we were this weekend. Yeah. We're in the neighborhood pool. Yeah. Everybody's having a good time. But luckily, we live down the hill from the pool, so we just walk down there.
Someone needs something from the grocery store, and then you hop in the car.
That's exactly right.
And then
who hasn't seen that play out? Everybody has,
hundreds of times.
And if you say you haven't, you're not being honest. That's right. The truth.
That's right.
So we'll get into the 40 Key 3 Seconds program. Matter of fact, let's do that before we get to the 100 Deadliest Days of Summer, which is the reason you're here. But I want people to know about the 43 key seconds program that y'all are doing with the Lutzie 43?
Yeah, Tug, it kind of gets set up. We lost Philip June 29th of 2014. By late 2017, it probably delivered 200 talks or so, primarily high school, college, NFL teams, but then started to expand to all school assemblies at high schools. And I was asked two key questions. Was I happy with what the foundation had accomplished at that point? And was I concerned about Philip's relevancy? Was already thinking about both of those. And again, I'm headed down to Auburn to go have several meetings. And I speak down there 4 or 5 times every year at multiple events. And if you ask Auburn students now to raise their hand if they knew who Philip Lutzenkirchen was, very few hands go up. And that's where he lived for 4 years and blood, sweat, and tears playing football and as a student athlete. So the relevancy factor has I've looked a lot different than when I started doing this 10 years ago.
Sure.
But then the results, I think we can always do more. So, but what we looked at is said, how do we not have a symbol in this country or an image that would be all-encompassing of roadway safety? So we have a lot of great campaigns the government's created, like Click It or Ticket. You text, you pay, drive sober, get pulled over. The reality of those statements, our kids, our older adult drivers don't see those on a billboard or hear them on a radio unless somebody gets grant money and pays for that. And then we don't have a single image. When you ask teenagers, what's the image that you look at that triggers you to be a smarter and safer driver? You get a blank stare and you either get one of two answers. It's either a phone, and then I say, you mean a phone in a circle with a slash through it? Okay, that has nothing to do with seatbelts, nothing to do with driving after midnight or super speeding or being that key teenage passenger with your new teenage friend who's driving to make sure you're both focused on safety. So there is no image. And then the next thing the kids will say, there's blue lights behind you. Right? Well, back to blue lights behind you. It's probably too late at that point. If you got blue lights behind you, you're getting pulled over. You've made some poor choice. So what we did is we put Philip's number 43 on a key, and it says 43 key seconds. On the opposite side, it typically says 43 and the word TO, so 43 too distracted free. But people a lot smarter than me said, Mike, can we put our corporate logo on the back or our high school logo or our college logo? So we'll do that. We call it a co-branded key.
Sure.
It goes on a lanyard, but more importantly to the key is there's a 43 key second countdown that says before you start your vehicle, no matter who you are, what your experience is, what you're driving, where you're driving, or when you're driving, you ask yourself to have a clear head, clear hands, clear eyes, and then we do tie into the 20-year program of Click It or Ticket by saying click it. And just to give the audience a little bit of flavor, what does a clear head mean? It means you ask yourself before you start that vehicle, am I drug impaired or alcohol impaired?
Or sleepy.
Am I fatigued? Am I technology impaired? Or am I emotionally impaired? And all 5 of those can hit any age group. And we're just saying if you answer positive to any one of those, you're not prepared to drive. And you need to step back for your own safety, for your passenger safety, for bicyclists, pedestrians, and other vehicles. And so we call it 43 key seconds.
This is so good because there are so many adults that'll jump in a car and not be clear-headed. Maybe you just got in an argument. Maybe you just had a tough day at work. I mean, it could be a million different things. I know we typically focus on younger drivers, but Daniel, this is something that is really beneficial for everybody who gets behind the wheel. And you know, if they're doing something crazy where they're not clear-headed, they're going to end up with you anyway. So this is now the time to even.
And I've done it. I mean, when you're deep in thought and you run a stop sign, I mean, I've done it. I mean,
too.
So it's terrible. I mean, like that's why sometimes I'm like, I don't want to be the one driving because there's so much.
You're ready
going
for
on.
autonomous cars.
Well, I'm just so much. There's so much going on that it's probably better I'm not the one. You know. But,
sure. No, I get
it. It's a. Yeah.
It's frightening. And Mike, do you ever have adults actually asking you questions, or are they just bringing the kids and get? Do you have adults that are like, hey man, I kind of fall into this category a little bit?
Yeah, I'm going to go down to, we've got a wonderful partnership with a company called Convergent Technologies. To give you a little background, over 10,000 employees, $3 billion company, 5,800 vehicles on the road every day with a Convergent logo on it. And they're typically 6,500-pound loaded-up pickup trucks. They go and do fire installations and security installations. So part of their safety program really was focused on that employee to say, how do you properly come up and down a ladder? And they kind of realized they didn't have a consistent road safety program. So we've partnered up. And I did a talk up in Baltimore recently and at a Convergent Technology group. And I'm going to go to their facility down in Fort Lauderdale to speak Friday. And I'll go down to Tampa in a month. But 170 people in an audience in Baltimore, all convergent, and I said, raise your hand if you drive a company vehicle, and about 30% of the hands went up. I said, raise your hand if you typically don't wear a seatbelt in that company vehicle, and not a single hand went up. But my follow-on question to this adult audience, to answer your question, was I said, raise your hand if when you get off work, you don't wear a seatbelt in your own personal vehicle. And it was amazing to watch adults kind of put their hand up near their ear, look around to see who else is,
Like,
and then raised it up. And I shouldn't do this, but I chuckled. I said, how can that be? So you wear it to appease your leadership at work because it's a mandate, but you don't do it in your own life. And that's when I say to every audience, no matter what you hear from me today in a 45-minute talk, please wear your seatbelt. Had Philip had a seatbelt on the back seat of that SUV, I wouldn't be here today. He would have survived it statistically. I'm not sure what mental or physical capacity he'd be in, but wearing seatbelts, 99% of the time, you survive a crash. And yet 61% of our fatalities, low 60s, people weren't wearing seatbelts. It's a 2-second habit in our life. And part of the power of our story is the young man that got in that same vehicle as Philip. The only one, the research said, post-crash wore a seatbelt. He walked away with a concussion, ran for help, and the other 3 kids were partially ejected or fully ejected, with 2 of them dying. So to your audience, there's so many things we need to be doing better behind the wheel of a vehicle or as a passenger, but wear a seatbelt. It's a 2-second habit.
Click It or Ticket has been so well branded, as you brought up in the first segment. What do you suppose the reason behind it is? Is it because you don't see it as much anymore? Don't hear it as much anymore? Because I think everybody has got the message. Everybody's seen the data that backs up what you're saying. But it seems like, at least by the way you're describing it, that we're trending in a different direction. We're trending in the wrong direction there.
Well, I think with seatbelts, there was a whole phenomenon when it came back out. Originally, it was nobody's. The big brother, the government's not going to tell me what to do in my own vehicle. I'm not wearing a seatbelt. To ultimately got to the point where I'm doing it to avoid a penalty and getting fined if I'm not wearing one. To now, I think people realize it saves lives. And again, I'm no expert in this, right? But what we hear is there's less likely wearing seatbelts sometimes in rural communities because they feel there's not as much traffic. There's certain audiences that don't wear it because they have such large families that there's not enough seatbelts, so they just don't do that. So I don't know. I just think to me it's a 2-second habit. Whether you reach up to your left shoulder or right shoulder and come down to the opposite hip and put it on, it's not encumbersome. It's not restrictive, and it's going to save your life, right? So, going back, we talked about the 100 deadliest days of summer. To our teenagers out there, there's more teenagers on the road. They're driving different hours, and we will see a spike in the percentage of fatalities involving teens during this period of time. And credit for this is like the AAA Foundation and National Highway Transportation Safety Administration, the National Safety Council. These are all road safety stakeholders that have said, hey, let's brand this campaign. We're trying to do some things around that with what we're doing, but these safe driving summits we're delivering, these corporate talks. Again, I go back. They do a reporting period Memorial Day and Labor Day from about 6 o'clock that Friday that kicks off each week until midnight that Monday night. And in Georgia, even with all the efforts we're trying to make out here, we saw 14 roadway fatalities. Last year, there were 13 roadway fatalities. So it's going in the wrong direction. And again, we've talked before the show, some horrific trucking and transportation industry crashes that have occurred on I-75 in North Georgia. One of the stats, again, is it's the upper 80%, 70 percentile, almost 80% of crashes involving these large tractor trailers, we, the light vehicle driver, are causing because we're not respecting.
That's right.
Around
Zipping
those
in and out.
And again, I'm not saying I know the details of what caused those, but I'll also say this: in every industry, we've got some bad apples, and there might have been some bad truck drivers on that that weren't doing what they were supposed to do. But
or maybe it's a combination of the two.
I think that's right. So our whole purpose every day is trying to figure out how do we get people to have better behaviors behind the wheel of these 4,000, 4,500-pound vehicles to just keep us all safe on our roadways.
100 deadliest days of summer, as Mike pointed out, stretch between Memorial Day and Labor Day, where we are now. Teen fatalities spike. Teens, 20% more likely to be involved in a fatal accident during this 100 deadliest days of summer than any other time of year. And it seems pretty obvious as to why. School's out, kids behind the wheel, I've seen it in my own life with my own son. I see it in our neighborhood, and Daniel, I'm sure you see it in your neighborhood with the kids. Is it just as simple as that, Mike?
No, I've survived dumb things I've done. Right?
Yeah.
So, no, I think
Me too.
I think there's also, at least in my area, Daniel and I live in the same area in East Cobb. There's a mentality that there's not as much traffic at school hours now because school's out. So we can maybe drive a little faster, or teens aren't on the road.
But that's really just during the drive times, right? Because kids maybe they don't get up as early. You're not having to go through school zones. You're not dropping kids off. But that just means it trickles out and then is more prominent, I guess, later in the day.
Yeah, I think that's
later
right.
in the morning.
I mean, my kids grew up as athletes, so they were early morning workouts. But then they had the rest of the day, so they were driving. At one point, we were crazy. We had 7 vehicles and only 6 drivers.
Goodness.
And again, we're blessed to have a lake house, Lake Hartwell near Clemson. And one weekend we were up there when the kids were all in high school or maybe early college. And I'm like, we've got 6 vehicles up here, because we all drove up at separate times because of our schedules. And I'm like, that's got to stop. Just the percentages of having my kids as inexperienced drivers on I-85. So we had to sit down way back many years ago, and this was before we lost Philip, and said we've got to change our behaviors. And if you got to wait 30 minutes because your sister's not available to go, wait 30 minutes. So we take one of the vehicles off the road.
Or if it's wait 3 hours.
Right. That's right. But again, we're just at this period of time where these kids are going to get experience. I tell them all the time, it's the greatest phase of life. You're getting to go somewhere without a parent with you. But you've got to respect that opportunity, right? It's not a right. It's a privilege to have that vehicle. And again, I just hope the audience can sit and say, hey, the 100 Deadliest Days of Summer, wouldn't it be cool if 5 years from now we're away from that because we've changed, and it's not the 100 deadliest days of the year. So there's just so much we all can do to respect one another on the roads.
I would like to think that would be the case. I just call me a cynic. I think people struggle to either think ahead, plan ahead. They, like you're saying earlier, they get in a hurry. They don't believe it can happen to them. They're invincible. There's just a lot of human elements that seem to be the anchor that weighs things down. The human element may be the biggest issue. I mean, you talk about school being out, 100 deadliest days of the summer, distracted driving. 60% of teen crashes are because of distracted driving. We talked about alcohol, obviously. Talked about phones a little bit. We've even brushed across having many people in the car at the same time. One that I see every day, and I am guilty of myself, eating in the car. You're reaching down. You got to find where's my Coca-Cola or whatever it is. Or where did I sit? I dropped a piece of cheese on my lap on the wall, looking for it so it doesn't get smeared and rubbed it. You know what I mean? There's nothing worse than when you're eating in the car and some of it falls and you're like, oh my gosh, I got to figure this out. You can't wait till you get to where you are. You gotta run your hand under the seat or something's in the back. This is another one that I've really tried to help myself with because I'm so guilty of. I have a backpack. It's in the room with us now. I carry it with me everywhere. It's got everything that I have, everything that I need, no matter if I'm at work or at home. I've always got the things I need with me. I've got to the point where I put it way back in the back corner of my pickup truck as I'll flip up the seats and put it over so I know I can't reach it. If I know I can't reach it, I don't even try. And that's the distraction for me, and I really had to come up with a plan to not do it. And there's been those moments where I'll even look back and I'm like, can I reach it? And I know I can't. But it's the simplest things sometimes. It doesn't have to be this kid has been drinking at the pool all day and they get in the car because they've been overserved and maybe they shouldn't have been drinking at all to begin with. It was age. It can boil down to something simple as trying to get in your backpack. And you talk about 60% of teen crashes, eating, drinking, phones, passengers, backpacks for me. The distractions are limitless. Like, there's things that we'll never even come up with because it just doesn't happen in our everyday life, is the way I see that.
No, that's right. I mean, again, distracted driving, a singular topic, continues to be the number one or tied with mass gun shootings as the number one that takes a teen off of our earth. It's distracted driving. You factor in all the other ones, not wearing a seatbelt, super speeding, driving after midnight, young teens goofing around the car because they're now in the car together with the freedom of not having an adult. All those aspects come together, but distracted driving continues to be the leading cause of death for our teenagers. And that's what we try to address during these safe driving summits that we deliver. And then when I go and do an individual talk at an all-school assembly called Phillips Legacy, what legacy are you leaving?
What about the Georgia Motor Carrier Compliance Officers? I don't know that, and I'm sure you've told me about this and it's just escaping my mind, but if I can't remember, I'm sure maybe people don't know. Talk about that and what that is exactly.
Yeah, so in the Georgia public safety community, Georgia State Patrol, there's three groups. There's the state troopers that most of us see on the road all the time. There's the Capitol Police down there protecting the Capitol, and then there's the Georgia Motor Carrier Compliance Division. It goes by MCCD. Those are state troopers that have been really focused primarily on making sure commercial vehicles are safe on our roadways. So they'll pull somebody over for doing an inspection. That driver's doing everything they're supposed to do. Boom, they're back on the road. They may pull somebody over because they see something that's going on, and that could be a fine. We're proud that because of this relationship with the Georgia Department of Transportation, we have brought in the Georgia Motor Carrier Compliance Division to lead our law enforcement breakout at these 5-hour summits. On July 17th, the foundation's actually going to host down at Central Georgia Technical College in Macon what we're calling a commercial vehicle safety summit. So we're going to have Motor Carrier Compliance Division there. We're going to have training managers or safety managers and drivers from Georgia-based or Southeast-based trucking companies. And then I'm going to give a kind of state of the foundation, where the foundation's at. But people ask me, Mike, if there's a word to describe what you're doing, I'm like, we're collaborators. We're trying to collaborate and bring road safety stakeholders from the public environment in Georgia. That would be Georgia Department of Transportation, Governor's Office of Highway Safety, Georgia Public Safety, which is your state troopers, your Motor Carrier Compliance Division. We bring in county sheriffs and city police at these summits we do. And then we bring in the private sector. And we believe that the trucking, transportation, logistics space is an area that we can help them with our 43 key seconds, but they can certainly help us promoting 43 key seconds or protected by 43 key seconds. So we're bringing these two groups together for a 3-hour event to make sure that we're doing this all we can from a law enforcement standpoint at these summits and from trucking and transportation companies educating these kids about please respect when you drive around these big tractor trailers. It'll protect you and protect them.
How do people find out more about it? Is this something that young drivers can go to, or is this more geared toward adults?
This is geared toward specifically the Motor Carrier Compliance Division trooper team and the summit and the professional drivers. But what we're doing is we're making sure we're all on the same page so that when we do go to a summit,
and
it's got 1,800 kids at Alpharetta High School, or we'll have 400 kids hopefully Friday the 13th at Pope High School, we bring those subject matter experts in to educate these kids in their respective fields of expertise, so that these kids leave there thinking, okay, I didn't know that the blind spot was on both sides of the tractor trailer or right in front, or I didn't know the stopping distance at 65 miles an hour on that 80,000-pound vehicle is going to take 155 yards for them to stop and not hit something. We're just trying to educate these kids where I don't think they're getting some of this in driver's ed or parents taking the time to, let's go. For example, I use this a lot, and people probably think I'm crazy. No parent's going to go on the side of a road and say, let's wait for a deer to come out and let's go try to not avoid it, right?
Right.
It's just so we're trying to do what we can with law enforcement and the trucking companies to say, here's how we can make you smarter with those respective agencies.
When we come back on Back Your Blue with Mike Lutzenkirchen, Daniel Matalon of A Second Chance Bail Bonds and A Second Chance Monitoring. My name is Doug Cowart on Extra 106.3. We'll talk about some of the other companies that have vehicles on the road that maybe should be paying attention to this message and how to get your kids involved. Some of the programming that Mike and the folks at Lutzie 43 are teaching, where you can learn it. Is there places online? Do you have to go to one of the summits at a high school, or the other ways? We're going to get all those questions answered next on Back Your Blue on Extra 106.3. Welcome back to Back Your Blue on Extra 106.3 with Mike Lutzenkirchen of Lutzie 43. Been talking about the 100 deadliest days of summer, according to the National Road Safety Foundation. During this, teens 20% more likely to be involved in a fatal crash than any other times of the year. It's the stretch between Memorial Day and Labor Day. And Daniel, I know you're dealing with folks who get themselves in trouble, maybe making poor decisions behind the wheel. This is probably a little bit different than what you see on an everyday, but it's certainly something that needs to be talked about.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, we see it every year. I've been in this world for 20 years now, and yeah, I mean, it's every summer. You know, I don't know what it is. Well, I don't know what it is. It's like every summer.
And Mike is talking about it, how it's trending in the wrong direction. 13 deaths a year ago, and 14 over Memorial Day most recently this year.
That's right.
It's trending in the wrong direction. Are there other companies that you think should be paying attention to this? Obviously, we got the trucking companies that you're working with that are really engaged, which is important. Getting the kids engaged, important. Getting adults engaged, important. But maybe other companies that we've left out, delivery trucks, Uber drivers.
Yeah, here's a general statement I have for all the listeners out there that work in corporate America. I believe that 99 out of 100 for-profit companies are philanthropic in nature, and they want to give back into the communities that they're thriving in. And they look at causes like breast cancer awareness, Wounded Warrior Project, backpacks for the hungry, Alzheimer's research, all that stuff. I really think those are great causes, and,
sure.
and I always encourage those companies to stay on those and keep investing there. But when I sit down with a C-suite, I want to ask them about 3 types of personnel. And the first one is, tell me about trucking company, for example. Tell me about your road safety protocols that need to be adhered to by your drivers. And on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate how effective they are? And it's great. You look at the C-suite, they're looking around. Typically, the CEO lets the highest person in there responsible for safety answer the question. But the average score you get is 7 out of 10. We're sitting here across from Truist Park. If Chipper Jones were to hit 7 out of 10 at the base hits every time he went to the plate, he's a Hall of Famer for sure, right?
If he gets 3 out of 10 is what he got, and he was in the Hall of Fame.
That's right.
Can you imagine what you do at 7 out of 10?
That's right. But if you're Trey hit 7 out of 10 free throws, you're an average NBA player.
Sure.
But 7 out of 10 on their safety program for those that drive the commercial vehicles. So they're kind of looking at you, say, who's the next audience? I said, tell me about everybody that doesn't drive a commercial vehicle. So it's your HR, it's your payroll, it's your social media, it's your warehouse personnel, your janitorial. Just as important to your organization, do you emphasize road safety for those that drive their own personal vehicles? And now you get the stare.
The answer is no.
And most companies say we're not. And then I think there's some companies that give me a stretch answer, but the average score would be 5 out of 10. So you already have identified one group you can impact. So going back to the companies we want to talk to, we want to talk to every company, right? But then the third audience, now they're really wondering, it's like, how much have you spent on your safety protocols that your commercial vehicle drivers have to follow, and package it so they can take it home for their driving age family members, their spouses, boyfriends, girlfriends, kids, so they can benefit from your investment in safety. And now I've had one company say, Mike, we're doing that.
Wow. 1 out of how many that you've talked to? Hundreds?
Yes, that's right. So I believe, this is a generalized statement, I believe in general, the private sector, whether a for-profit or a private, nonprofit, that their focus can exceed into their neighborhoods and start with the communities. So corporate social responsibility is a big thing on. Let's look at roadway safety as a cause. Keep doing all the other causes you support, but there's room to add roadway safety as a cause in there, and we think we do that through our 43 Key Seconds program and partnering with corporate America.
Yeah, it's a great way to engage with everybody, Daniel, that puts their eyes on the road, that cranks the car, we got their driver's license in. Because I think Mike hits it on the head. You probably don't think about the sales rep. I guess maybe they're out and about in the community. Maybe that's probably a bad example. The HR representative, the business manager.
Yep.
They still drove to get to work. Mike points out such a great point. You're not driving a commercial vehicle. You're not driving a company vehicle, but you're still driving.
Well, I've had people get in accidents on their lunch break. I mean, middle of the day, and I'm like, so-and-so just got, and I'm like, oh, my God.
Yeah, right.
So, it happens all the time.
When I go back to one of the companies I really spoke at, before I got in front of their audience, I asked the general manager of this location, I said, how are you doing year to date? This was early April on your fender benders. And he says, Mike, we've had about $17,000 of expense due to poor decisions by our employees driving our vehicles. I said, well, extrapolate that over the cost of a full year. That's about $55,000. His immediate response was, that's one hireable position I can't fill
because of
those poor decisions. So it's the little things like that fortunately, these were just fender benders. What we're trying to do through 43 Key Seconds is save lives.
Sure.
And So your audience out there that works at a corporation, I'd go in there and say, hey, how are we doing with holding all of our employees to the protocols we've set for those that drive our logoed vehicles? I think you're going to see an improvement in employee morale. It's really a wellness program, if you will, for employees, and that's what we're trying to really push through Philip's story in the creation of 43 Key Seconds.
It's important to do. Let's say, let's go through some of the upcoming summits that y'all have in high schools where they can learn, for folks can learn about them and get their kids out to one, hopefully, or if there's other resources if they can't make it one of those.
Yeah, so these summits are typically, we've seen them grow from we first started doing them on a college campus, and we'd bring in 300 kids from public and private schools in that geography. And trying to corral that many transportation issues and get multiple schools is a big challenge. So actually, we've seen more of a trend. Like, we'll go to Pope High School on Friday, June 13th. It's the first one we've done in the summer. We've got a huge champion over there and the athletic director. And Matthew is going to have 300 to 400 kids. Instead of going through summer workouts that morning, from 8 to 12, we're going to condense the 5-hour summit into 4 because he wants to respect that they may be going away for the weekend with the family.
Sure.
But we'll do a summit at Pope High School. That'll be our first summit, quite frankly, at a Cobb County high school.
Wow.
Just have had some challenges getting Cobb on board on this. But to date, we've done 29 summits. Over 18,000 kids have attended these summits. So anybody out there, if you think there's interest in your high school to have this no-charge event, our partner with the Georgia Department of Transportation, they underwrite all the expenses here. We'll come out to your school and do this 5-hour summit where we bring in healthcare, trucking and transportation, law enforcement, all types of first responders, and it's a 5-hour event.
If, let's say, it doesn't work out like it hasn't, unfortunately, in Cobb County, are there resources on the website that people can access and do their own, I mean, you say summit because it wouldn't be that, but just interact with their own kids about the information that's posted there?
Well, one of the things I like to brag about a little bit is back in late April, we announced 20 more PFL scholarship winners. And to my family, that means Philip Francis Lutzenkirchen. But publicly, it's Prepared for Life. So we've delivered 135 we've awarded 135 scholarships now at a total value of over $550,000. All the high school students that are juniors and seniors or undergraduates in college, they're eligible for this. Now, there's some rigor to go through the process to get the scholarship, but you can go to our website and learn about that, and that's www.lutzie43.org, LUTZIE43.org. But also, one of the first things we did is we created a curriculum to honor Philip that we thought words that described his character, and it's called 43 Lessons to Legacy. And that happened within the first year to 18 months after we lost Philip. And I'm very proud about this. Most nonprofits that start like ours, you're lucky if you survive the 18-month mark. And we will do an 11-year anniversary in October. So we're proud of what we're accomplishing. We need to do much more, but we'd love to have you go to our website and learn about what is 43 Lessons to Legacy. And 2 years after we created that is when we came up with the 43 Key Second acknowledgement that we got to create a symbol. We need to create this countdown. And we took 13 of those lessons that we thought really aligned with safe driving, like the word discipline. Nick Saban wrote that word in our curriculum. And when I met with Nick, he had recruited Philip. Our daughter Abby played soccer at Alabama, so he knew of Abby. And I went to Nick and said, Nick, I really need you to consider authoring a day in our curriculum. And I had 2 words that describe Philip's character to give to Nick. And he said, Mike, I don't need a word. The word's discipline. And he immediately said, Mike, and here's, I know Philip. I recruited him. I coached against him. I've gotten to know your family a little bit. That weekend, that fateful weekend, Philip elected not to be disciplined. And that's what took his life. So discipline is one of the words that we've now digitized. And you can get those up from our website at no cost, those 13 lessons. And it's a great way for a parent to kind of interact with their kids about, hey, let's go through this lesson. I've had parents say, Mike, I benefited from that lesson as much as my kids.
I'm sure.
But it gives the parents a conversation to have with their kids. And we tell every audience I speak to of teenagers is us adults don't always make the right decisions. In a proper, respectful way, you can influence and manage up to your parents, especially when it comes to protecting ourselves and vehicles.
The 100 Deadliest Days of Summer until Labor Day. According to the National Road Safety Foundation, the teenagers are 20% more likely to be involved in a fatal crash than any other time of the year. That's the reason we're having the conversation. We're glad that you were here on Back Your Blue. Lutzie43.org is the website, LUTZIE43.org. MCCD.org. Mike, thank you so much for being here.
Well, Tug, I appreciate that you have this as a topic that you bring to your audience, because it'd be easy to sit and just talk sports or anything else.
Yes, sir.
And Daniel, your support for this means the world to me. Again, I'll close with this. On a national basis, the government and road safety stakeholders have created a program that's called Road to Zero. And just to make sure the audience, again, we're talking about crashes. We're not talking about accidents. An accident is when you're driving that vehicle and that deer jumps in front of you. That sometimes is unavoidable. That's an accident. A crash is when we rear end somebody because we're super speeding, we're texting and driving, we're doing something we shouldn't do. We lose a life because they weren't wearing a seatbelt. Maybe that seatbelt would have saved that life. 45,000 roadway deaths due to crashes. So I believe in Road to Zero, but I think something more realistic to me is, hey, can we get 45 down to 40, down to 35,000, down to 30,000? And what that would mean, and again, the reason I do this is I don't want another family to go through what we went through in losing Philip. And believe me, yesterday I shared again, 34th birthday, and he wasn't with us physically. So we cried some tears of sorrow, but we now have learned to celebrate his life. And being on this show is a celebration because I'm here because of Philip. And just to close with your audience, wear a seatbelt, slow down, look out for one another, and we're going to reduce that number.
Wise words from experience, for sure. That'll do it for us. This is Back Your Blue.